Okay, so I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Things have gotten our way this year, but welcome along, Sue, to the webinar to my little business. So yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Dale Logan from Equine Nutrition, and this year I have wanted to bring on, whenever I can, speaking to, I guess, my people that I believe in, and I think that I want to share and let the rest of the world know about. And so I finally got Sue and I to match up days. So a Christmas special, I'd like to call it. We can play Christmas music in the background. But yeah, welcome along, Sue. So Sue Pennington from Sue Pennington Equestrian. So yeah, just tell us a bit about yourself, so in your background and what led you to this place and all the interesting things.
Thanks, Dale. Yeah, I'm really chuffed that we eventually got around to doing this, and thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, well, I probably started when I was 2 years old. On the way to play school, there was a big paddock in England which had horses in it, and I would hang over the gate and feed them if Mum would allow that. And I come from a very non-horsey family. And then in the UK, started riding at the age of 5. Just I think little riding school. I remember a little pony called Snowball, my favorite pony. And then some very naughty Shetland ponies, although they weren't naughty. They just did it better than me, and often sent me down the ditch when we used to go out for hacks. But they probably had better ideas of what was supposed to happen than I did at the time. And then we moved to South Africa when I was 8. And we just leased horses and had, again, riding school, quite low level competition. Eventually wore my dad and mum out about 20. And they bought me my first off the track thoroughbred. But then I had to pay for everything. So I just worked at the yard where I kept him. That's how I really got into coaching one of the stables that I had my horse at. And Montgomery, who's still very much in my life now. She was the one that encouraged me to change how I ride and do my coaching. Although in those days I thought of more of it as an instructor. We were taught to instruct people, do this, do that. Whereas now with my Ride With Your Mind coaching, it suits me much better because it's coaching and it's more of a conversation, more of a buy-in with people. I always say it's a 3-way conversation, the rider, the horse, and myself. Most of the time, I'm just the interpreter, interpreting how the horse feels to the changes that the rider's making, and then giving that loop feedback, and then how we can improve it. So there, yes, I've been mad about horses since I probably could walk. I now have 3 horses. Or maybe I've just skipped ahead a little bit in South Africa. Well, like I said, I got the first off-the-track thoroughbred. I had 2 other off-the-track thoroughbreds after that. I got very much into eventing, which is still my passion. And hopefully one day, maybe next year, there's a particular pony that might help me get round a course or 2.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then, so like now I have a retired warm blood. It was my first New Zealand warm blood that I bought. That's a story in itself. She taught me so much and probably started a lot of the journey of learning how horses move and how they think. That she was the one that I realized that I wasn't doing a good, she taught me so much, and through her expanded who I was talking to and made me understand how horses think, how they work, how they process information. So yeah, she took me on a huge learning journey. They always say there's one horse.
That's so true, isn't it? I feel like the older I get and the more run this business, and you do gather the people around you, almost every single one seems to have been landed with a horse, and myself included, where you think you know what you're doing, and then all of a sudden, which is great because it seems to have sent each one of us down this pathway of learning so much more about horsemanship and riding and whatever you want to call it. I call it horsemanship really, and horse behavior and horse welfare. So yeah, it's such a common theme I'm finding. Yeah, and where there seems to be one particular horse where and yeah, I've got that sitting in my paddock as well. Yeah.
Yes,
So when did you move from South Africa to New Zealand?
we're nearly 15 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. You have that mix of accents where
yes.
sometimes the English comes out, sometimes the Kiwi, and sometimes a bit of South African.
Right, well, not multilingual,
Multicultural.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, um, and so you've got 2 horses now, or 3?
Got 3. So I've got the first horse that I bought when we moved to New Zealand. So she's a warm blood, locally bred. She had a paddock accident as a 5-year-old. But yeah, she taught me a lot before that, and she taught me a lot after that. And then I've got Jasper, who's my main riding horse. I've had him since he was 4. He's a quarter horse paint thoroughbred cross, but he looks more like a thoroughbred. He's just a really super horse to have around. I can put like most people on him to ride from beginners. He's just a real genuine soul. And but he does stuff. His thing is he's quite herd bound. And so again, that's about me doing a lot more training if I do want to get him to the place of where he's happily leaving the horses behind. It's fine if you take him out on the float, but if you just want to go down the driveway, then there's a lot of there's a bit of anxiety around that. So I'll tend to go. I think it's a bit of a Warwickshire thing that I learned, as I just go as far as I can, as many steps as he's prepared to go until he goes, not happy, then I'll turn him around. And so some days we'll just spend doing that, and I might only get down to the gate. When the gate, it's quite a far away, but I'll just do it progressively. And so the more time I invest in doing that type of thing, then that hopefully will improve on his separation anxiety. And maybe that could spill over into other places, because at competitions, that's where I've hit a hurdle with him. And there was other issues as well, or other things that could have been causing the problem with his feet and things, because it's all connected, as we all know. But I haven't gone and tested that now. So he's been back in shoes for a year, but I haven't actually taken him to a competition environment to see. And it was okay for dressage, but when it came to cross country or show jumping, where he had to really go away from the other horses, that we'd get to like jump number 2 maybe, and then he'd go, no, I don't think so. And and it's just like, well, this is not his usual behavior. I can take him to an arena and he'll jump the whole course of jumps. So it's just out of character. So there's I'm not going to go and increase my pressure on him in that environment, because I'm obviously not addressing something, because that's not his normal behavior. So I'm always into
it takes time to break these things down and then rebuild them up, doesn't it? And I know we're all human, and I had a bad accident quite a number of years ago, broke a fair few things, and which probably really started me down I did Warwickshire's horsemanship or relationship type pathway too, and it was a game changer for me. But it does feel to me like just breaking things down into little steps and then rebuilding them back again, and giving yourself time and giving the horse time. I think human nature, we like to fix things overnight, no matter what it is, and because no one wants to, not many of us have a lot of confidence. Well, some of us don't, some of us do, and that can take away.
And I think that's what I like. I've through the Jane Pike work, understanding more about how the human brain and body, the relationship there, we are one thing. And what I'm really liking there is a deeper understanding. For example, you had an injury, you broke things. You can mentally, on a conscious level, go, well, I should be this, I should be that. Why, and then get quite frustrated as to why you can't do it. And that's, in a way, the body holds the trauma. And the body can, remembers the pain. So it's like, you can think it, but on a subconscious level, your body's just not going to respond. And that's what the insight into that made me help other riders who are in a similar situation of thinking, oh, I should be more confident. I should be able to do this. And I'm like, well, first of all, the word should is probably a little bit of a problem. And then the other one is this is happening on a subconscious basis. And that's what we've got to change. And then rewrite the story. Because I've had incidents where someone said, oh, I had a really bad fall and I didn't jump for 10 years, or I didn't do this for 10 years. And then I'm like this type of rider. And then I get them on and we start going through and you're like, this doesn't correlate anymore. So like, are they telling themselves a story that they've been telling themselves for 10 years and the brain's been elaborating on that story every time they replay the video in their mind, and that's not their reality anymore? That's why doing videos and lessons is so good, is like, I can say, well, you told me this story that you're a very nervous person and you're this, but today this is what you presented. And they see the video and they go, oh, yes. And then we can start writing the story. Or someone's
that would be incredible. I think that's something that a lot of people at a potentially, tell me if I'm wrong, at a lower level wouldn't usually do, is video themselves. And that could be such a helpful tool to changing so many, changing your perception, which, and I know because I've been down that pathway is what you're talking about. And we both collectively know Jane Pike and the work that she does. But your mindset totally changes. Well, you have these chemical pathways in your body that keep getting reinforced, and then that changes how your body works, doesn't it? So which I guess gets me into your biomechanics work. Can you explain a bit more for those of us that don't really know so much about what is biomechanics and how does it work with horse riding?
Okay, so I'm just going to go into a little bit of a definition thing, and I just quick. So biomechanics is the area of science. So it's not just something that somebody sucked out of their thumb. It's concerned with the analysis of the mechanics of movement. And so that's why I'm so passionate about rider biomechanics as well as horse biomechanics, because we want to ride. So if you never wanted to ride and you were only interested in doing in-hand work or groundwork, then you'd become more of a geek, which I believe we should become geeks about ourselves or our horses. But if you only wanted to do groundwork, then you could really geek out on how the horse moves and the science behind it. And so going back to what biomechanics is, it's the study of human movement, including the interaction. And this is where the horse and rider thing. So if we want to get on the horse's back, and again, if we lived probably in a world that we should live in, we would start with the groundwork. We'd start to understand how the horse moves, how we can improve that movement, because of course, the more symmetrical the horses, the more we're going to have longevity in his soundness and hopefully longevity in his life. And we see horses that are breaking down at 5, 6 and all the way along. We're not seeing a lot of horses in the 30s in the competition world. Or even in late 20s. And again, I know I'm generalizing, there are the exception, but but there should be more. And so what we're looking at again with biomechanics, it looks at the forces acting on so as a rider, the forces that we are putting onto the horse, and then as riders, can we match the forces that the horse is putting on us? So if I ride, for example, a 14-hand pony, because I'm only small, I'm more chance of getting that horse. I'm much more able to match that pony's forces that he's putting on my body. And I can really take and organize myself in such a good way that he'll be able to do what I want him to do, which is good posture, him coming over the back, being able to use his body in a really good way. Because I'm just generalizing there again, there could be a whole lot of straightness issues, but let's assume I can really help that pony. Put me on a 17-hand warm blood, big moving warm blood, probably not so much. Because I'm short, I haven't got the length of leg. I'm less likely to be able to organize myself in a way that horse's forces would not influence my body. I'm going to have to work a lot harder on the big moving 17-hand warm blood, especially if it's a young one, it's unbalanced and things like that. I've got my scope as much of where I am in my riding, of what I'll be able to be a benefit to. to where it comes to a point where I'm going to be a hindrance to that horse.
Yeah, that's so interesting because so many people and I guess a lot of coaching out there would never probably don't know that and then never admit to it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's huge that you understand limits and then find, I guess that's where your coaching comes in, that you can coach the rider
Yeah.
or the big horse or the little horse.
Yeah.
Would that
And
be
we're also,
right?
yep, yeah, and like it's trying to find the good match. And I love it when I get to the when someone comes in. Oh yeah, sorry, I just went off. Where I can help them even find the right pony or horse for them. Often I come in at the end of it when things are not going well.
Yeah.
So they're like you probably, I've got this problem. And then we have to work out, like backwards almost. And it's again, how much is that rider prepared to go backwards? How far do they have, like sometimes they have a big step backwards. And, again, not everyone is receptive to making those big steps. But that's yes. But yeah, the ideal is when you get that opportunity to, if I've got a client who I know their capabilities, know the environment that they can keep their horse in, and then we go and look for a new horse for them or a new pony. That is, it's really great to have that opportunity, and because then you can sort of the whole matchmaking.
That would be, I think back to my days of looking for horses, and I know there'll be people out there that agree with me. I mean, on the one hand, it's so exciting, and on the other hand, it just fills you with dread. So to have someone like you with your experience, I mean, I wish I'd known that back then when I was looking for horses. So reach out to Sue for, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
because as I say, it's about matching.
And we have sort of a vision of ourselves, and sometimes the vision is not necessarily the reality of where we're currently at. And it's not to say, especially returning adult riders who did things when they were younger, like evented or like they were brave, they were confident, they had the right pony. And again, maybe not always necessarily with the welfare of the horse at the time, but again, we only know what we know, but when we know better, we do differently. And then coming back as a returning adult rider, you've got a job or you've got children or the children have just left home. Your body's not the same, your mind is not the same. And it's just then having that understanding that, yes, mate, I had off the track thoroughbreds when I was in my 20s. Do I want an off the track thoroughbred now? Well, probably not. Doesn't mean to say I probably couldn't with the right type of off the track thoroughbred, but not the ones that I had when I was in my younger days. Because like now I want to spend time. I don't have a huge amount of time. So when I do ride, I want to be safe. I want to have fun. And my idea of fun is training as well. So that's okay. But and I can take some of my clients, they want a horse that they can just go to the forest, go to the beach, go to the track, go competing and be safe.
Yeah.
The little ribbon at the end of the day, for some reason that little $2 ribbon, probably not $2
sure.
But yes, but it's the safety that they want, and so finding that horse or pony that just challenges enough, but not so much that pushes them out of the comfort zone or makes them scared that they don't want to ride.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be fun at the end of the day, isn't it? Yeah, I totally get it. So, in your business, I think, because I was a little bit the same. I mean, I've known you for a few years now, but I probably, unfortunately, didn't get you as my coach because I've retired from riding at present, with life taking over. But a lot of people might think that you're just a dressage coach, but it's biomechanics is all, isn't it? All
It's
disciplines.
like I remember going to watch some high level show jumping at Woodhill Sands, which is just down the road from me. A top New Zealand rider, and he would come over a jump, and as long as they had to turn to another jump that was to the right, for example, that was fine. The horse would get the lead changes, it'd land and balance, really nicely set up for the next jump. But if they had to do a lead change to the left, it was not a pretty sight because that was the side that this rider collapsed to. And I was like, oh, a lesson with that guy. I'd be able to sort out that left canter lead and make it more harmonious for them instead of him having to really throw the horse around and collapse through his left side. But yeah, I've worked with show jumpers, event riders, pleasure riders, because even a pleasure rider or a leisure rider needs to be in balance with their horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
because then you get more enjoyment and everything lasts longer, and then you don't want to give up.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I do love about biomechanics, is because it's not discipline specific. So I've helped show jumpers improve their jump off rounds and getting caught, like, and show hunters with their lead changes. And so yeah, it's because as riders we have such an influence over the horse. If I'm like I'm a left collapser, and so we all have, because we can rotate, we can collapse. So I collapse and I can rotate to the left very easily, which means that I've got to do very conscious things if I want my left canter leads, if I want to do my lateral work to the left, because instead of actually having good seat aids and body aids, I do the little funky collapsy thing and my seat bones go all over the place. But because I know what I know, I can correct that before it even happens. Or I can look at the horse and go, okay, oh dear, I did this wrong. Therefore, I know that I did that wrong in my body.
That's so valuable. I do remember myself, and I know this about my riding, and I've known it for so many years, but I came to the realization that I was doing it, but I never really took my riding far enough that I looked for someone to help me with it, and that I know that I do a funny twist thing when I'm at I was riding Western a lot, so when I'm at a lope or a canter, I'd twist this way. And I can't imagine what that must have done to the poor horse underneath me.
Well, that we call it like rider-induced unsoundness in our horses. And so so that over time, so horses are very skilled at creating compensatory movement patterns.
Yes.
So whether it's their own discomfort that creates the pattern or the rider's patterns that create the horse pattern, and again, it's all connected. So, but as the human, we are the only person that can change it. So whether it's a case of getting off, doing the groundwork to help improve the horse's symmetry, whilst you're also unmounted, improving your own symmetry, and then putting them back together with a biomechanics coach to say, right, now, this is the pattern in your body, and this is how we're going to correct it on the horse. So there's got to be unmounted for horse riders, unmounted for horses, and then when you're together, having the knowledge of what pattern you have on the horse and what the pattern the horse puts on you.
I think that's just such huge knowledge. And it also strikes me as it's available. And I think something that Sue and I have talked about before is that we have so much available to us now. And I know that, as we've spoken, that social media can get a bit overwhelming, because I guess that's where we all are, or the 50,000 unwanted or unskilled comments that you get potentially from where you're grazing or riding. But there are so many things out there that we can learn from now, that now that it's like almost 2024, that we can gain knowledge from and put it in our toolbox, so to speak. Be it nutrition or riding and biomechanics, and then you can, and it does. I'm really a fan of groundwork, and it doesn't matter. There's so many different parts of groundwork that you can do, but then I'm always telling people, but then you can put it in the saddle as well. It doesn't mean that it's going to be really boring. And I know that you have a lot of parents sometimes think the teenager just wants to get on, or the 10-year-old, they just want to get on and ride and hoon around. But I don't think that that's potentially always the case, is it? Because you have young riders.
Yeah, I mean, I'm blessed to have a few young rider clients, and they're so on board with my thought process. And so, yeah, if I say to them, right, this is your program for this week, and it includes your 5 or 10, it doesn't have to be big. It can be 5-10 minutes on the ground before you get on.
Yeah.
In fact, it should be your health and safety check.
Yeah.
You know, my husband's a pilot, or used to fly microlights. He would never get in his plane without doing a pre-flight check.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get out on our horses. We pull our horses out of the paddock. Oh, he's misbehaving today, or he's not his normal self. You know, he's a little bit up. And then we go and groom him and he's trying to bite us and kick us. Then we put tack on him and he's still trying to bite us and kick us. Then he doesn't want to stand next to the mounting block. And then we wonder why we get bucked off.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like saying, okay, well, my horse came out of the paddock like this, quite unnaturally over the top or a little bit wired today. Let me stop here while he's still in sight of his friends, and let me do a little bit of groundwork with him. Have I got a park? Have I got a little backup? Can I just move him around quietly and get him on me before I now take him up to the barn where maybe he's on his own, because a lot of cases that is, that you're bringing your horse out for yourself and there aren't any other horses around. And then if he won't stand up tied up while he's eating his hay, because that's another thing, as we know, I can't tell you whether my Jasper's been eating grass in the paddock for the last half an hour or snoozing in the sun. So is his gut empty? That's like stupidly ill-designed stomach with only half life. Again, I think if we could, I always talk about if we could turn back the clock, can we redesign the tummy?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And other things. So it's just those little pre-flight checks that can mean that when I get on, my horse is more with me. Not thinking about his paddock makes, for example, or is there something really wrong? If my horse doesn't mind, like Jasper will come up, I very rarely have to do anything along the way. He might be a little bit uptight if I tie him up and then leave him. So I always make sure the hay net's ready for him, and we'll just hang out and I'll groom him and do his feet, because at that moment I'm his herd. And if I go and leave him now and run back to the house for something, the chances are with that horse, he'll probably pull back and go back to his paddock. So I'm taking those factors into consideration. But if he started to bite me when I'm putting his girth, I'm like, this is not normal. Like what is going on? And then I'd probably stop and, find the other factors. But I really advocate that we do our little pre-flight checks before we put our bum in the saddle. And 5 minutes groundwork, just to set the scene. Like if I can't walk my mare that's retired, I used to call it the slow walk, because she used to just pace everywhere and rush. I was like, okay, can we walk around the arena at slow speed? And in the end she could, and then she started to relax. So there is so many factors, but that would be the one thing, is like that pre-flight check before we hop on, and part of groundwork.
I think with life gets rushed, and there are some people just forget, and my time with my horse is supposed to be riding, and it does get very much, it's supposed to. This is supposed to be like that, and this is supposed to go like that, and I'm supposed to be like this, and the horse is supposed to be like that. And obviously as a nutritionist, I gather so much information that I hear all about the behavior and things like that, and I get it. It's a human nature thing, but Sue and I both on the same page with welfare is so huge now that we have to get away from, I must be riding for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and if it doesn't happen, then something's wrong. I think if you take that time.
Who said that we need to be on for 45 minutes or 20 minutes? Like, and is that valid? Like if I've only got 10 minutes, I'm better off taking my horse out the paddock and do 10 minutes of groundwork. If I want to ride or do things with him, those 10 minutes are a much better use of my time than 30 minutes of a really bad ride.
It sets the scene all the time and sets a new pattern, doesn't it? A new pattern of thought process and behavior for your horse as well.
And if if I'm working towards getting a horse fit for an event, and that's different, but then I need to sort of put out my schedule for the next 6 weeks and say, how am I going to build that up? I think we forget about, I see like horses that have been off for a long period of time, and then they're expected to go out and compete. And where is that time for the horse to adjust to? Depends on the fitness of the horse. So sure, if I've got a top event horse and it's super fit, if it's off for a week, it's probably not going to make that much difference to its fitness. But if I've got a horse who's naturally not an athlete and he's had a week off, he wasn't that fit anyway, then it's a different story of how long it's going to take that horse to get to the fitness level to go and do the event or whatever it is they want to do. You know,
And
like
that's where you're getting the injuries happen, and so you can't always see it. You can't always see from the
no,
outside. And I guess that's when you see, oh, things aren't moving properly.
yeah. And that's you know, like you said there, we don't see it because remember, by the time the horse shows it to us, it has to be really bad. Because if
Yeah.
they're showing injury, then it means they're the weak one. They're the ones going to get killed first. Because even though we've domesticated them, they still think that way. They're
Yeah.
just trying to survive. They're living in the moment. And it's like you said, fight, flight, or freeze. You know, and each horse is different. And we've got to take that into consideration.
And each horse is such an individual. I like what you said quite a bit earlier about you have to, the rider's an individual and the horse is an individual, and then you put them together, and so it's looking at that individual package. Yeah.
And that, like I always, everyone is a different experience. That no two horses and riders or combinations are going to be the same. We can have similarities, but we're never going to be the same because my experiences are different.
Yeah.
If we both had falls, but your fall is different from my fall. The way you fell will physically and mentally impact you very differently from mine. The stories I tell, the stories you tell. So no one, whoever comes into my arena, Mary Wanless, who's the rider biomechanics lady, Guru, she says, you know, everybody gets to reinvent the wheel. You know, that because we're all different. So the corrections or the awarenesses that I have and somebody else has, or my two clients, I'm going to give them different language because it makes sense to them. So if I, you know, like I love it, you know, we work with analogies because of the different learning styles. So one analogy that might work for somebody could be completely different because no one's got a reference to it.
Yes.
That's the challenge of a coach, is to find the words that make sense to that person. And that's what I love, is they are unique. So everybody who comes is different, and I get to challenge myself as a coach to bring the best out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. And you mentioned Mary Wanless. So she is like from what I know, the biomechanics guru that you have invested a lot of time learning from, and which is why I love people like you, because you're continually learning. You're not like stuck in whatever you learned 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and still carrying that on. So how did you get involved with Mary Wanless? Is she from Australia? Would that be correct?
No, she's from England.
Okay.
But so my lovely friend Anne Montgomery, who I knew, so I stabled my horse with her in South Africa. She's also British. She's British as well, but they moved to Australia. So Anne was the one many years ago, while we were still in South Africa, who introduced me to the Ride Biomechanics, Ride with Your Mind, Mary Wanless thought process, methodology. She'd invited a coach from England to come over to South Africa, and I did go for a couple of lessons, but sometimes you have to be in the right place, in the right moment for you to accept these things or ready to hear them. And I just wasn't ready to hear it at the time. I was out eventing. I was doing, you know, fairly well. And I didn't get a lot of buy-in from myself at that point in time. And so then we'll speed forward to 2011 when we were in New Zealand. And a friend of mine who lives in Muriwai, not too far down the road, had a Ride with Your Mind lesson with a French coach who happened to be in New Zealand on holiday. She suggested that my friend Susie got in touch with, in fact, you know Susie Pennington.
Yes. Very well.
So Susie organised the first Ride with Your Mind coach to come to New Zealand to do an official clinic. And that was Anne Montgomery, who was living in Australia, who, like I said, was my friend from when I was in my 20s. And so I went and I just audited that clinic because, again, I wasn't convinced buy-in wise of, financially and things. So I did audit those clinics. But because Anne happened to mention to me, she says, oh, like, do you live anywhere near Muriwai? I'm coming through to this. And so I said, you're going to have to come past my house to get there.
Yeah.
So she came to stay with us and again rekindled the friendship and my passion. And she was the one that encouraged me to pursue the ride with your mind, the way of riding, and then the accreditation. And so I can't remember, I'm not very good with years. My husband's really good at saying exactly what happened in what year. But anyway, I did go to the UK. I did training. That may have been 2013, but I could be wrong. And so I went over to Mary Oneless, and then what Mary does for us who come over from New Zealand is you can do the ridden. You have to do a ridden clinic before you can actually do a teacher training clinic. But because we were coming from far away, we could do the intro teacher training, and we could do the advanced teacher training. So I went over and I did those three. And what I would do is you'd have a lesson in the morning, which was a shared lesson. And Mary would work the two right. And in the afternoon, you could choose between another flat work lesson or you could do jumping. And so every afternoon I would do the jumping. And so that's
I
why
knew you were going to say
that. It gives you that, again, a lovely broad spectrum of what needs to be happening on the flat and in the jumping. So not only did I help myself in my own jumping, but then now as a coach, I can help other people as well. And then I, again, can't remember, a little bit on the confidence thing, eventually got round to doing my case studies to get my accreditation. So yeah, I'm an accredited Ride With Your Mind coach. I think there's three of us now.
Gosh, it's quite involved, isn't it?
Yeah, there's four of us in New Zealand. Yeah, and then if you were in the UK, you'd have to go every 2 years to keep up your accreditation. But Mary lets us do it every 4 years. And we've been very lucky as she's come here. She was here just recently. In fact, she's still in the South Island. And then 4 years ago, and then 8 years ago. So yeah, this was her third trip to New Zealand. I organized her ridden clinic. And then Linda Brown, who's down in Tauranga, organizes our teacher training down there for us. So we do get a lovely submersion again.
Yeah.
Her work.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's
quite involved, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, Mary's not into these weekend clinics where you qualify. You have to she has to make sure that you've understanding the concepts and the ability to own it and have it your own. She doesn't expect us to regurgitate what she does. She wants us to understand how people learn and our own creativity. So that and we had one coach who was trying to get accredited, and she was like, but you didn't say that in this book. And like Mary said, but we've evolved since then. The book does say that, but since then there's new research or new findings. So she's another one. I mean, she's in her 70s, early 70s. She's a continuous learner. And every time she comes with new knowledge. And she said, this is how I used to do it, but I think this is a much quicker fix.
I think that's brilliant. And it's, I take my hat off to you for following that, but keeping learning, because that's the whole thing, isn't it? I mean, as a nutritionist, I seem to be saying to people, well, I do the research so you don't have to read it. I read the research because there's new research all the time. And I freely admit, I put my hand up and say, but something that I might have said or thought 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago, well, there might be new research out there now. And I'd like to attempt to at least, keep learning, really. And no matter what you do with horses. And I just again think there's so many ways to evolve and keep learning. And one thing that always comes to mind with me is I think back to the we're both at Equifest this year in Taupo, and whenever I saw you were carrying some noodles with you. What's the deal? I have to say, I think I got busy and I didn't see you with the noodles, and I wasn't sure whether you were just carrying your friends or what you did with them. So if anyone's ever seen you or saw you at Equifest, what sort of although it's obviously different for everybody, but what sort of things do you do with biomechanics and teaching and your noodles and things like that?
So I'll park Noodle for a while. You can remind me about him if I forget.
Mm.
So basically what we're trying to do is create awareness. So first of all, we don't know what we don't know. So I can come in, and you spoke about it earlier, that the chemistry within our body, and we don't come with a spirit level. We don't come with a little map of our body. And sometimes the map's not actually relevant, or it's no longer, it's become a dirt road rather than a highway. And we can talk about neurological pathways. So, and that's why videoing is so good, is because we believe, for let's say, for example, the rider, as a young rider, or maybe a few years ago, was told that they were leaning forward, and the coach may have turned around and said, lean back. So they get to a place where the coach goes, lean back, lean back, lean back, and the rider goes from forward to vertical, and the coach says, yes, great. But that created a feel sense within the rider. So now the rider's one of those riders that doesn't video themselves. So they go around for another year going, oh, that's right, I've got to lean back, a lean back. Oh, okay, the feel sense was really extreme. So now instead of having a vertical, they've gone past vertical. But now they're getting positive reinforcement from their brain and their body. I get the feeling I'm leaning back. The coach said that was good. So then the next time they have a lesson, they're like, oh, no, now you've got to lean forward again. So that's why the brain doesn't come with a spirit level like you've got it. And that's why we see riders a lot with a lot of heels down, too far down, which puts them into a water ski position. And then the horse turns into the motorboat, and then the rider goes, my horse rushes. So it is about, that's why the videoing is really good. So that I send that, like I'll video it before, we'll do the changes, discuss what it feels like for the rider, and then and then I'll video them. We'll show them a photo, because if it's a really big change, which is a bit like having an ulcer in your mouth or a filling that's moved, like you feel like it's huge, and then you look at it and you go, oh my God, it's so tiny. So small little millimeter changes can feel huge in the human body. And so then I've got it on my phone, I'll photograph them and say, okay, let's go back to your old place. Let's put you into the new place. And I'll show you the video. And they go, okay. Because then I can override very quickly the mind, because the mind going, no, this can't be right. This is wrong. I'm leaning forward. I'm leaning back. My legs are near my horse's tail. Or if someone's got, their legs too far back and I put them where they're supposed to be, oh, my feet are near the horse's elbows. It just feels so wrong. So when I show them a picture or a little bit of video, then they'll go, oh, no, actually, that's right. And then they can go around and we can practice that. And I can just give little bite-sized chunks of information and they can maintain that. So I use Franklin method balls. Don't have any around here. So that gives, again, just waking up and giving proprioceptors to the rider's body of what this should feel like. If a rider's got really tight glutes, I can put them on the mini Franklin ball, roll them and send them off for a little minute, and that will help release the glutes. So then we can access other muscles. So if your glutes are really tight, the chances of you getting in with thigh rotation are almost impossible. So it's just trying to find the inroads, and that's where understanding how the body works and what muscles do what. So if I've got a hollow back rider, but they're really tight in their glutes, I've got to release something before they can access something else. Like I said, every rider is different. Everyone has a different S curve in their body. Then we've got the unconscious stuff that can happen as well. So I use a lot of rubber bands, resistances, push into my hands, giving feel senses of where helping people understand this is their current body pattern, but let's waken up a few muscles and we can create new patterns. And then Noodle was an animal, well, it actually comes from Dressage Naturally, Karen Rolfe. She had something, which I think was a pool noodle, and then she'd made like a little handle thing, and she was doing steering and lateral work. So I've had the pool noodle for ages, and then Anne came along and she said, I've got this little rolling pin. It was a mini rolling pin, and we put that through the noodle, and the reins then would be able to put on the rolling pin. I ended up with the rolling pin because my dog chewed the rolling pin. The noodle actually has a little bit of a chewed rolling pin. But anyway, I took it to Equifeast because, again, humor we learn through play. And I wanted something like that I could maybe leave the crowd with that might stick a little bit more than just the words or watching
Yeah.
my lovely
Yeah.
demo riders.
Yeah.
So Miss Noodle has a blue tail made out of baling twine, but it's really easy to show what happens when you pull on the rein. So
Yeah.
again, if we could turn back the clock, I would teach not to use the reins for steering or halting, and I would not, the bit was designed and the reins are designed for something completely different from what we see is used most of the time. So I love going back into history and seeing why was the bit used, what is the purpose of it, and what are we currently using it for. So anyway, so Noodle was really good at showing jackknifing and how the problem is when we use reins for steering, how the horse will actually jackknife through the shoulder. And again, human nature is that I pick something up and I move it with my hand. So if my horse is falling out left shoulder, it's just human nature for me to want to pull that right rein. But the pulling the right rein jackknifes the horse even more, and my steering goes more out of the window. So yeah,
Yeah,
I noodle one.
yeah. And it is true that you get over what she thinks struck me there is it's easy to get overwhelmed with when you go to these events and shall I start this or should I follow this person or that person. It can get overwhelming. And I know that, although I think there's some awesome modalities and learning to be had out there, but some of them are not so good, and sometimes I think you can follow it to the detriment. And so, but it is about picking, in my opinion, picking someone like yourself that has educated themselves and also thinks about the rider and the horse and the welfare, and welfare comes into how you move and how you're expecting the horse to move. And I was thinking at the same time, well, this is what we need to teach our kids from really young, about welfare and about riding and about how just simply use your body rather than pull on the horse's mouth. I just think that's awesome, and if only we could get more. I think we sort of learn these things as adults maybe, but we need to get it into young kids who are
I think,
learning.
finding the way into educating everybody who's involved in horses, and whether I'm a rider, even like a parent, and I know it's hard. Again, they're investing time and money already for them to ask, like, and I've got some really wonderful parent owners who, like they try so hard to become educated and listen and take it on board. And just fabulous, and the child is being supported by a parent who is understanding. And I know that not everybody can do that, or is that like it's maybe it can be overwhelming. There's just so much information. But I think if we look at what welfare is, and like I said to you earlier, if we really want to be welfare to our horses, then we wouldn't be riding, because they're not designed to be ridden. They're not a bicycle. But that doesn't mean, like, I have decided I want to ride. I have friends who've decided not to ride, because of that conflict they were having with themselves about whether it was ethical to ride. But so I've decided I want to ride. I do enjoy competing. I enjoy the goal for it, but I'm going to do it in a way that is as ethical as I can be, and their well-being. So when the horses go off to competitions, they get fed before they get on the float. They've got hay in the float, or whatever the thing is, whether it's lucerne, haylage. It's got to be something that they're really keen to eat. And then when we get to the show, if we're going to be standing around for a while, is there a hay net available to them so that they can munch in between classes and things? So we try to really look at what does the horse need nutritionally while we're doing this thing for ourselves, because there's not a lot in it for horses. Really all they want to do is hang out with their mates and get fed and have shelter. It's selfishly everything that I want to do or riders want to do, that they get put onto the stuck in the tin can to be driven off to a foreign place where none of their herd members are there.
Yeah.
So if I
Yeah.
can, like going, we took Gary out competing this weekend. The environment was a much quieter environment than the previous show, AMP show we went to. So he was in a much happier place. And there's just
Love
like,
Gary.
yeah.
He's adorable.
He's more resilient. He is a more resilient horse than some horses are.
Yes.
But it's even though he is more resilient, his subtle signs of not so happy, we need to be taking those into consideration.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
some horses will be very explosive, and
Mm.
maybe we're missing the subtle signs of their unhappiness. Or he has just got normal natural resilience, and I still have to look out for his little signs, because
Yes.
he can get ulcers as quickly as the one that's more expressive.
Yeah. And
He's
at
just
the end of the day, it's teaching yourself, or wherever you go to learn about horse behavior, learn about your own horse, take notice of it, and then go to people like you and learn these things and practice these things, and then at the end of the day, you've got a happier horse, and you're going to be happier in doing what you're doing for a longer period of time, instead of not being able to go somewhere, or always stressed, or always something happening, or eventually, obviously as a nutritionist, I see gut ulcers all the time, and so then it's medication and vet bills, and not doing what you wanted to do.
No, that's what I was thinking, is that we save money by doing the whole awareness thing of the behavior thing, the gut, the nutrition, because we all know what it's like if your tummy's not happy, if you've eaten something foreign, or the gut bacteria in your own gut's not great, then you end up with being doubled over in pain sometimes. And then that if you in that people have long-term gut issues, it affects the other organs, it affects the whole entire body, it affects how you feel, how you move. And the horses are just the same. So if they've got a continuous muscle, a tummy issue, a gut problem, they're not going to be moving in the way they can, because they're going to protect themselves. So all the muscles get involved in that, and that will impact the joints and the ligaments.
Yes.
It'll impact the way the hoof grows, because of the way they're putting the pressure through their feet, how they move. So it's all connected. And like when my farrier says to me, "Oh my God, the feet are looking so good, it must be the way you're riding," and I go, "Yeah, that's great, but it's also the way you're shoeing him." Or the trimmer. I have both. I've got a shod horse and I've got trimming horses that are barefoot. But it's the whole deal. It's how they move, how they're shod, how they're fed, how they're kept.
Yes.
It's not one without the other.
Yeah, it's very multifaceted, isn't it? And I get that some people would be thinking, or they say, well, you can only do what you can do, and that's true, but there is so much that we can do. I'm always really positive about that now, especially when I meet people like yourself, and we talk, and your horse nutritionists, and your vets, and your farriers, and I've just got a new farrier because my farrier retired on me last year. But this farrier is he's from England, actually, and I think we're really lucky when we get new people with loads of education behind them, and continuing education, and just putting another
and that's like you said there, like my farrier is also one who continues to learn. My body worker is someone who continues to learn and educate, and that body worker is my horse body worker, and she's my body worker. So, and obviously I have you as my nutritional person. So those are the people I've chosen. And it's the same. I get kind of frustrated trying to find a coach for myself.
Yes.
Because there's only so much interpreting I want to do. Like I can go to a coach who is more horse focused, and they'll tell me to go and do something, and then they'll say maybe they'll go for that whole lovely thing, more leg to outside rein. I'm like, okay, well, I know that's not the answer. So what is it that I need to do? Where does my body need to be? What's happening in my horse that this coach is seeing? And then I interpret and I do what I need to do, and then I'll normally get a, that's great. That's what you need to do. But I've done the work. not the coach, you know. So yes, I know that we have to as riders do the work, but I've also had to interpret what that coach is trying to tell me to do or what it's seeing in the horse, because they don't have enough words. They were riding, that's what they might do. They might apply more leg aid, they might take more outside rein, but I know that that is not the answer. You know, yeah. But so yes, so it's yeah, and that's why I have to find someone who's like me, who is continuously learning and understands the relationship between the horse and the rider.
Yeah, and the fact that it can evolve, and
Yeah.
and you have to change things as you go. Yeah. Oh, yes, I know we could go on for hours. I must I've got a few questions here from people, and I guess we've kind of covered biomechanics. And is there anything else you wanted to add? What's ride with your mind about? I guess we've kind of covered that. It's
We
thinking
have,
about things.
yeah. I haven't had the conversation with Mary again, but of whether she would have changed the name if she was to redo everything. Because when she started, I think her first book was in the 1970s or something like that. Is again, it wasn't really mainstream. It's becoming more mainstream now, but you know, we're in 1920, you know, like it's nearly 2024. So it's about how many years she had to go through all of that to get it to be mainstream. Anyway, but yeah, so I suppose for me, my interpretation on the ride with your mind is like it is so much about the rider's mindset or mind adaptability or plasticity that is going to make the difference. Like you said, we've done a lot about speaking about how we need to be continuously learning and how we need to be adaptable to change. And that was what her thing is like, it's about awareness. So my mind, if I'm as I spoke to you about the videos and the photographs, is if it's stuck in your head that this is wrong, then that's what I've got to change. I've got to change your mind perception about how your body is influenced, because we are connected, mind and body, but nothing happens without a little brain going to the thing. You need to do this, and this is right, and can you hold it there? So it's the instructions and the and like that for me is where the mindfulness comes from. It's in
it is, yeah. No, that's great. And I think, well, basically we've covered why it's so good for both riders and horses, and because that's I think that's what I like about your teaching, your methodology, your ride with your mind, Mary Wanless, is about the horse and the rider. It's not about one or the other. It's about both and putting it together so that you can go forward. And sometimes that's missing, I guess, isn't it? Yeah.
So Mary calls it interface. And that's what you're aiming for, is to get your horse and rider on interface with each other. And that's what I was saying, is I'm like the interpreter. The horse gives me information. So the rider will do something. The horse will either go, yeah or no. And then let's say we're on a circle and the rider is doing something really well on one part of the circle. And it's again, is how many steps can the horse keep it? How many steps can the rider keep it? But then we'll go into like, okay, so what were you doing around there? Can you keep doing it? And it, you know, sometimes I'll just say to the rider, keep doing what you're doing. So instead of giving more instructions, I'll say, keep doing what you're doing, and then we'll stop and we'll have the conversation. Because some people can reflect back to you while they're doing, and some people can't. They're completely internalized and they're just doing. And if I ask them to speak, then the whole little chain of lovely events just crumbles.
No, I get that.
So for me, I also have to learn which rider's in front of me, and remember, this is the one I said, right, give me 2 circles like this, and then we're going to stop. And then we'll discuss, so that I know. And again, what I'm doing there is learning what they're doing, so that when I see them lose it, I can then just remind them. And it's just 2 or 3 words that I might say to them to get them to keep thinking that way, or a little checklist.
And so I did have someone inquire about, because we're lucky enough to have you in Auckland, but you do video coaching, don't you? So you can coach if you can't get to someone in person, you can join up to your program and still.
And I also do so video lessons We just put the video onto YouTube on a private viewing platform or whatever. No, it's private. And then what I like to do is I watch the video, I write my notes, and then I'll set up either a Zoom meeting where we'll sit together and we'll go through the video, and I can slow motion certain sections down. I can pause so that the rider and I can get online with what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I haven't done any live ones. That's also very internet dependent. But I've got a client in England that I work with. They've got like obviously time differences and things like but yeah, she just sends me the videos. I crit it, write my little notes down, and then we sit together and we go through it. And then she'll go off and practice, and come back with new videos.
Yeah. So yeah, anyone out there, I'm going to link up obviously Sue's Facebook and socials and website, and so yeah, you can do this. I mean, I often as a nutritionist I can do so much, and then I'm often, if anyone's my client, they know I'm putting notes in there about the fact that it takes a team of people and behavior is multifaceted, and Sue is one of the people that I recommend that you go to. And so don't feel like if you're not in the Auckland wider area, you can't get access. You can, it's easy. And so I guess one of the last things that I wanted to ask is, and it's a bit wide and you might not be able to answer this because everybody and every horse is individual, but are there some of what you would term your best exercises or the go-tos that most people should be doing?
I think what we've got to probably, I suppose, that like once we get to the exercises, it's like your second toolbox. So I think the first place is to video yourself and then compare that. So from a rider perspective, and compare that to ideal. And we don't have ideal, we're not looking for alignment just to look pretty. We're looking for functional alignment to stay in balance and match the forces of the horse and then be a benefit rather than a hindrance. So that would be my first check box, is the rider in balance? I mean, but that, we can even, and slow down. Like if you're losing things at canter, go into trot. If you're losing things in trot, go to walk. And then we could look at any arena patterns. And so I suppose if I'm really, when somebody asks me these questions, I try to force myself to make an answer.
No, you don't have to. I think the first thing you said there was good, is take it back a step.
Yeah. So to me is like, I would go, I don't know, the exercise is called the snowman. So it's a 20-meter circle and then a 10-meter circle on top. And let's say we're just looking low level, we'd probably just walk it. So let's say you walk the 20-meter circle on the left rein, then you'd ride the 10-meter circle on the right rein. And then observing, is it easy to, again, there's a whole bunch, is it easy to go from left to right or right to left? And then obviously change rein and go the other way. And so gathering data, like what does this horse feel like when you do these things? And then depending on your level, you could try it in like the 20-meter circle and try and walk the 10-meter circle. And then go canter the 20-meter circle, walk or trot the 10-meter, or again, depending on your level, you could do canter the 20, flying change, well, not a flying change, probably not, but come down to walk and then canter the 10-meter circle. So, and then if we wanted to add poles, I would add poles on every quarter of the 20-meter circle. You can do it on the 10 as well. I normally use cones. So yeah, I always use poles and cones to make it geometrically as accurate as possible. And then to add on, see, this is just like one exercise and it's got so many facets. Count the number of strides you do. So if you set it with cones or poles, how many strides does your horse do in each of the gait, in each of the quarters? What happens on the left rein? What happens in the right rein? If he's doing, like, say, 6 on the 20-meter circle in canter, for example, but he does 7 on the other side, which one feels more balanced? Should that be 6 or should it be 7? So yeah, with that exercise, you can gather so much more information.
For me, that summed up ride with your mind, isn't it? It's like, yeah, there's all sorts of different things you can do, but do it and then think about it. Give yourself a break and think about it, and that's riding with your mind, isn't it? What happened and what can I do?
And
Yeah.
if, like, for example, if the horse is falling out one way or the other, where is your body? So I suppose if I add to that, I've got my analogy that I love to use the most is skewers. You've got 3 skewers that come out of your body horizontally. There's one on your bikini line, one on your belly button, and one on your sternum. And let's say we're going down the straight line, those 3 skewers would run down the horse's mane, or they'd be over the horse's mane. And then as you're riding on that exercise, you could say, what happens if I put my skewers slightly to the left or slightly to the right? So if I was going on the right rein, I would try skewers to the left, to the outside. What happens? And then you can just play around. If you, again, you could imagine you're sitting on a clock face. So 5 to 12, 5 past 12, and experiment. And that's what I said earlier. We all get to reinvent the wheel because each person's wheel is slightly different and coming from a different place. So I love the skewers and to experiment with them and see. But it's just
I'm immediately visualizing and doing this with my body, so that's really awesome. Yeah.
And remember, like as you said, like for me, I collapse to the left, so my skewers, instead of staying horizontally, would go off and tip to the left. And then I know I've got a collapse, and can I pick them up and move them?
Oh, it's so helpful. I think there'll be lots of people if you get to this point. Yay, thank you. And and you'll be doing this, I'm sure. Yeah.
And that's awesome. Do things while you're driving, and when you're sitting on your desk like we are now, like can I go to the left and right without losing a seat bone? So it is.
So many. I'm not even writing and I'm doing this. Oh, that's great. Oh, thank you so much. I know that it's a really busy time of year for all of us, and when I say that, and it's really, really busy year. We thought about this way back at Equifest time or before then, but I'm so glad that we finally got to do it. And again, I really I encourage my clients all the time, but please get in touch with Sue and do in person, or if you're not in the same area, video coaching. And if you can get enough of you together, you might be able to convince Sue to go and travel to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And have a very Merry Christmas. And we will speak to you. That's grand. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. Bye.